it's not that, we know what this is, and that's that. Yeah.
So Aphelios is going to come out for the side of Ultra Prime. I guess with 3 junglers being banned, LNG putting a heavy focus on this Viego coming through. Because other than that, I mean, you're kind of getting into the tier 2 pool of things like Zhao, you know, something we were seeing a little bit of when the buffs came out to him. Trundle is something that kind of pokes his head in now and then, and Vi kind of being the other one, but Hacker hasn't played the Vi this split, and typically that's something I feel like you show after the enemy team shows the mobile carries on its opposing side, so you could, like, figure that LNG will go towards something like a Jinx, but better to wait for them to actually show it than, you know, just go for the assumption.
Okay, tier 2, there it is. I mean, Hacker pulling out something like a Xin Zhao. He's already played it a couple of times. Trundle also available that we've seen teams gravitate towards, but will be the Xin Zhao this time around, which means for LNG, bottom support up in the air. I mean, Renata still being available, but hey, Lucian Nami lanes, we don't really see that much of anymore, and so they're going to try and take it here against the Renata that's now locked in for ShiauC.
I mean, for LNG, they're 2-1 on the pick so far. Lumao has only played with Light in one of the games, and they did also win that, so sitting 100% on that Nami. But like you said, we haven't seen it work all that much. We were even hitting on it a few minutes ago about how if you can't just surmount enough of that advantage, that it will just be rough later on where you're dashing into a range where Aphelios can just use his red-white, burst you down, can throw out the Moonlight Vigil. But potential will be there. We're going to see what ShiauC is able to do on this Renata as well to dissuade a lot of that aggression from coming through.
Well, they're already starting to ban away, though, some of the picks. That could be a pain with this Lucian Nami, though. I mean, Lissandra taken away from Doinb. We talked a lot about the mid lane champion pool here, Lyric, and so far, some of those overlapping picks haven't been looked at apart from this Lissandra. I guess Azir as well, right? We also mentioned. Taliyah still there, but Corki too, taken away, which is Doinb's most played.
Yeah, so taking away those two, we still have things like the Sylas left on the board.
Yeah.
Which still scares me, like if LNG want to get their hands on something like that, and just what we've been able to see it do in the mid lane. Taliyah being the other standout to me of what both teams like to play, but especially Cryin. Cryin has just been one of the best Taliyah players we've had in the league. We've already highlighted the Knights, the rookies. Like, those are expected in my mind. But the fact that Cryin has been one of the people who's been able to pilot the champion to such a high level has just been very nice to see. And one of the ways where Ultra Prime have been able to pick up a lot of their wins. It's his most played champion. They've won 60% of the time out of 5 games. Like, Cryin is super comfortable on this pick.
And you give yourself a Cryin Taliyah just like that. Now, you mentioned Sylas before for Doinb. You also said it fits nicely.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe he'd want to go for something in terms of like laning phase. We've seen Doinb a lot of times opt into scaling to try to win the 1v1. It wouldn't fit their comp at all, but I feel like that's the way that LNG have been drafting this split. Like, a lot of their compositions typically not necessarily rounding out well together, but something like a Victor if they want to win 1v1. But I definitely think they should opt into more aggression. Swain, Sylas, even if they wanted to go into one of Doinb's bruisers, like something that fits this like early game bruiser brawl playstyle.
Okay, well, the Swain would be one of his most picked as well. That would hit a sour, not a sour note, hit a swell note. That's the one. Sylas. Okay, we just go back to what we know is strong. Some teams first picking it, some teams getting it on blue side for the 5th pick. So there we go, Lyric. On the other side, quickly, tell me, Zoom's pick. He's got all the choices in the world.
Yeah, for Zoom, I'm actually kind of curious to see what he'll go into in terms of like being able to win out in lane. He already showed the Kennen, but then you do have strong 5v5 against a very low range sort of composition. And I feel like 5v5 is probably where you want to index, but no, instead opting into sides. They do have the Weaver's Wall to try to set this one up. And this will be Zoom's first Tryndamere pick of the split.
This is spring again. I mean, Tryndamere was just spring. Didn't we get this a lot at MSI? Kind of falling off a bit, but still, you know, it was lingering.
Also, just a little bit unexpected in terms of like recent Zoom and what Zoom's been gravitating towards. Like Zoom, to me, this split, he has been the Sejuani guy. Like anytime he's been able to get his hands on things like the Sejuani, the Gnar, he's also been one of the people willing to bring out tanks like the Ornn, which you'd expect, like thinking back to some of his prime years. But yeah, going towards the Tryndamere, we're going to see what he is able to do. I mean, you have the very strong 1v1. You have the ability to move with the Weaver's Wall. And then in mid-late game, keeping up pressure in sides, pulling the members of LNG apart to be able to deal with them, because no one should be able to come out ahead in that 1v1.
Lyric, I just pulled up Zoom's history, right? His career stats. 650 games have been played on stage by Zoom on 56 champions. He has played Tryndamere in his competitive games over the years of 2016 all the way to 2020. 6 years. He's played one Tryndamere game on stage. One. And it was a win. It was a win. So he's undefeated in 6 years.
I'm glad that, bringing it out once again to see if he can maintain that streak. And we've already hit on that Ultra Prime have been putting a lot more resources into Zoom than we expected with how this roster's played out, especially going up against a rookie in Pandac. This is where, if you're an Ultra Prime believer, you need to see Zoom deliver.
Maybe you're confident in that aspect. Zoom was known as one of the greatest laners when he was on JDG. Analysts from around the world complimenting how this guy plays his first 15 minutes of the game. Now with his 100% win rate champion, his second time in his 6 years playing Tryndamere, Zoom decides to shock us all when everyone's moved on from him. Now, Lyric, you already said the ability to play sides later into the game is influential. The ability to hit sides here with Cryin's Taliyah. Run me back a little bit on LNG, because Lucian Nami we know is a volatile lane, and it's not like you see scaling out the wazoo, all concrete through LNG.
LNG definitely want to prop up the spot lane. Like get them ahead, get them an advantage, find these kills. Tarzan kind of leaning into that side of the map, and you kind of have to expect that Pandac is going to have a little bit of a rough time in terms of how the matchup will grow to be in that top side, especially if Hacker and Ultra Prime are playing up towards it. But get them ahead early, because your level 1 power spike should just be able to outmatch what Ultra Prime have. Once we have Gale Force Mandate, and even Doinb at first item, being able to steal away these ultimates, LNG's early skirmishes and early team fights will be able to come out ahead over Ultra Primes.
I mean, that's a good sign when you see something like Sylas, right? That's what you want to hear. I feel like for Doinb, a lot riding on him here when we've talked not only about LNG being weak at this split, but I feel like Doinb hasn't been as concrete as you set him up for in 2021. His great splits, his great laning too. Right now, we're looking at bottom lane because it looks like Light and Lumao are going to try and force this level 2. The minion is a little bit behind here for Ultra Prime, so as the new wave comes through, Cameraman stuck down here. Elk is walking up with Calibrum, but level 2 is about to come through off of this melee minion. Elk and ShiauC paying respect, and the Cameraman obviously loves mermaids.
And but also look at the mini-map. Glad we're highlighting over junglers now, because both junglers making their way down towards this bottom side. Maybe they also love mermaids. And with how far up LNG's bot lane is pushed, it wouldn't surprise me if Hacker did want to opt into any early plays. We do have vision set up for the side of LNG in the bottom river, so they will be able to spot it out. With the fact that Tarzan's here, Light and Lumao should be fine to keep up the level of aggression that they've been showing.
Yeah, ward for both. I mean, Lumao at least able to clear that away, so maybe gives options, but pings are coming down from LNG towards mid. Tarzan right now looks like he's clearing Raptors, but with Cryin pushing pretty aggressively to start this game off. Tarzan thinking about an option, and we talked about Tarzan not really getting things going early apart from the last series on Poppy. This time on the Viego, maybe it might be a different feel as he now spots out Hacker.
And not even be able to get it, despite the fact that, his bot did have push for a long period of time. Feeling the heat coming out from Taliyah in the mid lane, just forcing Doinb under his tower. Now just going to have to opt into doing his Krugs. And then if there's no opportunity presented bot side, if Elk and ShiauC are still like where they are in lane, pretty close to their turret, probably just have to go for a reset as Tarzan and hope to find something on your second clear of the map.
Okay, well, we'll be there soon for the reset. Meanwhile, Zoom's just doing Scuttle, by the way, on this Tryndamere as he pushes up the wave himself. And feels a bit of stability to do so. But hey, Tarzan, never mind. He's not even going to reset, Lyric. He's setting up for the gank, but look, Hacker's here too. We're about to have a 3v3.
Both teams trying to fish for it.
Handshake. Lumao's caught out, has to flash away. Hacker's in, Ignite down, but is he going to be a trade? Light flashes forward, the bailout's there, but there is no hope of a reset. Nice from Light, as now for Tarzan, look at the tools. He flashes forward, and ShiauC does the same, but back. Gravitum's good, but no loyalty program for Tarzan. He's already claimed his flybys, Lyric, as LNG trade 1 for 1.
It's one of those things where it's sad, right? Because we see Hacker gets the bailout, so he's like, okay, let's try and find the second kill. Let's go in. Let's keep me alive. And then you just end up going closer to give Tarzan an ability to get a reset. We're going to get to see the full play here. Both junglers waiting the area, but Handshake coming out from ShiauC was on point to force the flash away immediately. Hacker able to follow up, and then Elk able to finish him off. And here, right, bailout comes through, so it's like, let's keep going, let's push for it. Just gives Tarzan a reset to go in, which enables forcing out ShiauC's flash as well.
I mean, bottom line, Summoners, 3 out of 4 gone for Ultra Prime, 3 out of 4 gone for LNG. We come back and Elk is dangerously low. ShiauC at least coming back into the lane, but it looks like he'll be fine with Light and Lumao not committing further. However, Lyric, with that health bar, I mean, that wave is going to push into the turret, with LNG now having a significant CS lead.
Nice of them to be able to take advantage of that. The one silver lining for Elk out of like all these shenanigans is he's actually the one member who was able to keep hold of his flash. So at least some safety if LNG keep aggressing on the spot lane like we do expect them to, but actually pressure in mid right now.
Oh, great seismic shove though. I mean, Cryin is level 6, worth mentioning. The Weaver's Wall is now up and available, but it might not matter if Doinb finds another engage like that again, as in comes Tarzan. No flash, but a good abscond duck with the Kingslayer. The damage is in, but just out of range. A seismic shove through as Hacker just has no interest in this play. He's on Gromp. Leave him alone. Cryan's fine in the 1v2.
We already highlighted how Cryin has been one of the best Taliyah players we had. And he is hitting everything in those fights. As we get a replay here to at least see how they were able to force out Pandac's flash. But great by Cryin with the discipline, because he not only hit everything, he didn't even have to blow his flash. He did use the ghost, but the fact that he was able to read that situation well and like know what his limits were to be able to escape that was very nice.
We'll see if it turns into anything bad though, because Zoom now has his ulti. Needlework was already there from Panda, but Zoom with double summoners up there and Berserker Greaves. The chase down is going to be a lot of fun to witness as we come back towards the middle of the map, because right now it is a setup for the Dragon with control wards put down by Ultra Prime, one in the pixel brush by LNG 2. We've had a lot of early action in this game, Lyric, that we've been skimming past. Only a couple of kills, but I think it's an important fact that, you know, our junglers are really trying to get this game rolling.
It's one of those things where, right, I feel like when people think, oh, this game's been aggressive, they just think of kills, and it's like, no. You can see teams posturing for opportunities, like aggressively walking in the enemy jungle, getting vision down, attempting ganks, and getting pressure ganks, which blow summoners. All those are very impactful to how the game could play out. In LNG, they sweep vision and bot side, and they're actually pinging out where Hacker is up in top. So they have a feeling that this play is going forward, but they're not turning into anything tangible, not taking the Drake, hoping Ultra Prime's bot lane does walk down, which they don't. So this actually just sets up a bit of a small win for Hacker in terms of fighting the blue, and maybe even a potential gank onto Panda.
I mean, especially since Pandac has been the weakness. Remember in the last series, LNG versus RNG, Panda was abused in lane. We had to call an ambulance because Panda died so much, but could not be resuscitated. As he jumps in again, there we go. We swing on in with a spinning slash, and that win becomes lightning from Hacker. Hits at max range. Zoom pops the ulti. Panda surviving for a long time, but in comes Zoom, who only just survives after that undying rage hits maximum value.
Zoom definitely feeling the heat after that one. Might open up LNG to have a window on Herald, which Tarzan's going for right now, knowing Zoom alone that it doesn't have TP, maybe expecting the recalls to come through. Feels confident in starting this one up, and not even going to need to rotate any other members over, considering that they see Elk and ShiauC catching this wave.
Dude, every time, I mean, they keep setting it up. Culling comes through, ShiauC's okay. Shielding from Loyalty Program helps out as well. Lyric, I mean, LNG have tried so hard to kill Elk and ShiauC, and they're still doing well, while Tarzan will finally get an objective on this map. Happens to be the first Herald, while Ultra Prime, as you said, timing window was crucial there. Let's look at the replay, though, because I feel like timing needs to be said about this play, too.
They had an inkling that Hacker was up towards the side like 20 seconds ago because they did ping it out, but he's patient, he waits for it. We see the ults pop, they both go in, and Zoom on a sliver of help after the damage does ramp up 35. This high. Luckily able to get it, but Zoom now in trouble.
Getting dove without an ulti, flashes away, but can he spin away? Undying range, still not there, and LNG punish the window. Now no summoners up there, Lyric, and Panda gets help.
not able to lock him down long enough to be able to find the damage for the kill. And this gives a window for Ultra Prime.
Wait for Hacker's ulti, though. About 10 seconds off the cooldown. Lumao and Light might not need to wait for it, though, as they flash away from the seismic shove. Meanwhile, Zoom in the top side, kiting from the needlework, and Panda gets the solo kill. Finally, Lyric, Panda is looking good.
I'm happy to see a young talent coming into the LPL and then taking advantage of moments like this. Zoom was chunked out pretty decently by the members of LNG roaming up. Panda C having the confidence to be able to go in, finish off the kill. So we do see LNG lose the Dragon, but a nice bit of gold onto Panda C. And I mean, look in Tarzan's inventory as well. He still has the Rift Herald, so he'd be able to just open up the map if he does want to drop the Herald there. And his camps naturally are pathing him towards the top side. We're going to get a replay exactly of what went down, and Zoom trying to walk in. We see Panda having the confidence to be able to look for it, considering he has that needlework, and still having a read on the fact that Zoom's ult still isn't available.
Panda A+. You know, we got to give him a ranking each play, Lyric, and that one feels like a bit of an A+ with the window used. The plating, as you said there, exposing for the Herald usage for Tarzan to just take it all down. 2 plates left in the top side, and even though gold's even, feels like Panda, this game has been set up to succeed. Hell, even the bottom side, right? Elk and ShiauC, even though they survived the plays, Light and Lumao have still done well enough. So as we come back to the game, Ultra Prime have taken Dragon as Zoom wants a bit of revenge, but Panda's doing just fine.
And I'm very curious to see how this game keeps panning out, considering that Panda, you know, getting that bit of gold, and Elk, like you said, on the opposite side is
good damage.
Some trading, but doesn't look like it should turn into too much. Because Aphelios is actually one of the champions who can kind of deal with the Gwen jumping at you. No!
Seismic shove's good. Chain lash just out of range. I mean, Doinb taking it. Meanwhile, culling used, and Elk almost dying. Pop your pots, kids. That's what saved him, as the range is helping out with the bailout, with the movement speed. Excuse me, that's a Nami. Instead, the bailout's used onto Elk as they get the champions right this time around, and he won't get the reset in a 1v2. ShiauC doesn't have much hope, and even the damage not enough. The handshake flash, that too was a fade away, with Light getting a double kill, and LNG's bottom lane strongly on the board.
This is what you want to see happen when you draft the Lucian Nami. You're finding these aggressive windows to set up for the 2v2s. Elk almost managing to get away on a sliver of health, but luckily Light going forward was able to lock him down. And then ShiauC left in that 1v2 had nowhere to go. I guess we can get an exact replay of how it all started, because Elk and ShiauC actually trying to be the aggressors, opens himself up for a huge amount of burst coming out from Lumao and Light, and then having to flash away at the end. Sure, we see the hostile takeover kind of buying him a bit of space and buying a bit of time, but sadly for Elk, not able to get far enough, especially with Light's E having already come back up. He now kites it out, bailout comes through, and leaves him in a great position to just take down ShiauC with nothing left to offer.
Just picked up Gale Force as we come back in the replay too. Herald used mid by LNG in the end, so not top, but just look at the goal that spun out of control, not only through the 2v2, the solo kill topside, the Herald play there now as well. LNG with a bit of a unique identity this game, Lyric. It feels like we are talking about players within their own rights just stepping up in the laning phase.
And right, it's kind of why we're still seeing what we said is one of the problems of LNG, of like, you don't see them link up all too much. When you have games like this where we're kind of just left to these isolated laning phases, and both junglers trying, right, but it's a lot about Doinb versus Cryin, Elk and ShiauC versus Light and Lumao, top lane 1v1s or 2v2s. This is where I think LNG as a team can thrive when they're not getting punished.
Well, I mean, even Tarzan right Hack versus Hacker right now, forcing him out of getting topside scuttle. As Hacker backs away, I mean, Tarzan, the S is even, but you know that this is going to be a Divine Thunder very soon. And as we kind of gear up to the next Dragon in a minute 30, just pay attention to these items coming across the board. We already mentioned Light, but Doinb's just picked up Everfrost. As I said, Tarzan should have the Divine Thunder by then as well. All that Ultra Prime have right now seems to be a Gale Force that Elk only just managed to pick up.
First item is also where I see LNG kind of outpacing Ultra Prime, especially the bot lane mythics. I mean, just Lumao being able to buff up Light, he goes in with Gale Force, and you could take someone down to like 10% of their HP, if not just outright burst them out, right? So that's what we have to pay attention on with an upcoming fight, potentially coming up either around Herald or Dragon. But even with the other mythics now picked up, just LNG overall having a stats advantage going into these fights.
Gonna be big. I mean, as tidal wave comes through, hang on, we might even get a 2v2 yet again. Culling at max range doesn't do too much this time around. That's double ulti down from LNG's bottom lane. 30 seconds before Dragon, Lyric, and I'm kind of wondering if it's going to affect LNG's confidence.
I think it definitely could affect how a fight would play out, but I don't know if LNG will detract that from maybe not going for Dragon or something like that, because if so, I don't know why they would go for the play to begin with. I think it was a little overambitious looking for those kills in that situation, but you can see both teams heading down towards the bottom lane, bottom side river already.
And remember, the Zoom's taken Ghost, so it's not like he can join in, nor would he really want to, let's be real, without his first item, without Tryndamere being a couple of items up too. As LNG start this off, I guess Ultra Prime say, yes, actually we do want to take this, but caught out as Hacker, a great ulti, but the hostile takeover needs to hit at least one person, only under Tarzan while Cryin comes in, misses the seismic shove, but Ultra Prime has started this off with a kill, while Tarzan needs his reset, but the stolen ulti from Doinb divides and conquers, as LNG bring Pandac in. He starts snipping Zoom, who goes into the Undying range, but Tarzan has a reset, has the range, and has bodies to take down. The Shadow Isles roam over Ultra Prime, and Doinb flares up yet again.
The fact that LNG were able to take that off of Light getting picked off is so huge for me. They not only get this mid lane turret, it looks like they might potentially be turning to Dragon as well. So they're going to be getting a huge amount of objectives off of that. And Ultra Prime, they find the initial pick, but not able to string it together.
God, that's beautiful to watch. I mean, Ultra Prime, you're right. You know, a little bit disjointed. We saw the ult from Hacker, I'm sure. We'll look at it now, Lyric. You're going to have to walk me through, because this was a bit of a longie.
I thought it was pretty risky for LNG to go for this when Light was taking Dragon. You've already lost his ultimate, so he, of course, does go down very early on. But then we see here, you hit on it, Doinb Sylas, like, great ability to be able to get in the fight. Huge Abscond Abduct, flashes to separate the members. Like, that was the key moment in the fight for LNG being able to take it. And Zoom comes down, but still you have a lot of like high value members on Ultra Prime who are low, which sets up for Tarzan to go to a Viego's favorite place, which is just Reset City.
That's right. Inherit the souls of your best friends, of your worst enemies. Viego loves people. Hang on. It's just a soul, isn't it? He doesn't like wear their skin or anything. No. That's a bit dark, Lyric. We're not going down that alley.
Please,
you know?
yeah.
It's still not as bad as Seraphine. No matter what, Viego is still a nicer person than Seraphine. We can hold on that because Doinb might be caught out a little bit here. Ultra Prime seem to be grouping up for the Herald on the top side, but LNG here first, and Doinb so confident here on this Sylas.
I know that Abscond Abduct almost connected, and I wonder what would have panned out in that situation. Like, it was technically a 4v3, but Cryin did have Weaver's Wall, so he could have ended up close by. And we just had a big fight around Dragon. Now it's time for a big fight around Rift Herald.
Let's do it again. The Weaver's Wall's up and available. Zoom has his own as well, but ShiauC wants an angle. He'll have to jump into the Herald pit as the eyes hit at 4K now. LNG have a 4-stack here, but Panda's flank has been spotted out on a ward. As they go for the Herald, he's trying to buy time, but with the needlework, he's sent backwards. Panda F. What happened there? Herald resets, and now Ultra Prime don't have to care about the objective. Zoom jumps on him. Hostile takeover from Doinb, though. That's a 4-man ulti again. Doinb wants a reset. Abscond Abduct doesn't hit Brax range.
Oh, Tarzan
is so huge, and Tarzan has his own fight to play. Ultra Prime with 2 members here, and Tarzan is collapsing on in. If it ain't Doinb, it's the king of the jungle.
And it's finally time that we see Tarzan popping off, Doinb having great performances, and they are amassing a huge lead over Ultra Prime right now. They can easily turn to this Herald, pick up another objective for themselves. And my God, that was just beautiful to watch.
It was. Like, even if Panda goes in and Ultra Prime start the kill, seeing Tarzan and Doinb do this again is giving me flashbacks to the RNG series. Lyric, this is what I felt. If it ain't one, it is the other. As we start this playoff with a 5v4 essentially.
Yeah, initial coordination not there from the side of LNG, so Ultra Prime feel comfortable in going in and looking to take this Zoom, just running forward and kind of running the members down. But luckily, Doinb takes the Renata ultimate, so he locks a bunch of members down, and Cryin, he jumps into 2 members of LNG. So not only is Doinb stalled out the fight on one side, it allowed time for Tarzan to get the reset, pick up the soul, and buy time for him to join in the rest of the fight. So it really felt like Doinb, I feel like, was the huge difference maker in that fight. but Tarzan able to kill Cryin and start getting those resets coming through. Like, you needed both working hand in hand.
I mean, Tarzan's 404. Cryin was not found. He was absolutely destroyed. And LNG with a 5k gold lead just about. At 19 minutes, Lyric, let's come back to it again because you talked a lot about side lane for Ultra Prime, but they have shown both over this Dragon, over this Herald, they want to 5v5 here with this Tryndamere. And each and every time, the stolen ult from Doinb, as you said, Tarzan reset. There's so many great abilities to disrupt, as LNG now want to hit the side lane. We're just talking about that, and Ultra Prime not even going to get that going for themselves, as LNG looks to take down yet another outer turret.
So the big thing is the fact that Doinb is so strong right now, right? He's sitting on 2 items, Zoom's sitting on about 1.5. He can go toe-to-toe with Zoom in the side lane. And a lot of times when we'd see this 1v1 in mid, it would typically be of like whoever doesn't give into pressure and holds their ult longer would be able to win out. Whoever used their ulti first would typically be on the losing end. And with Doinb having both Everfrost and Zhonya's, he can buy a lot of time before feeling forced to use that spell if he did steal away from Zoom and opted into a 1v1.
I feel like, you know, with 20 seconds to go there, let's come back to Dragon. 2 items you were saying for Doinb. On the back end, Ultra Prime just aren't there as Light's stepping up. He wants the culling this before we even get towards the neutral objective. And I feel like right now for Ultra Prime, this Ocean Dragon might just have to be foregone, considering that, yeah, you got side lanes in order, Lyric, but how are you going to walk up to this objective?
It does. You definitely cannot, right? We've hit on item advantage for Doinb in the mid lane. You have an item advantage in bot lane for Light. Item advantage in top lane for Pandac, just across the board. And a lot of these are tools that enhance your team fights, right? We have double Zhonya's coming out across the board, so that would just help LNG and hone in on the fact that they are able to get in the faces of Ultra Prime and buy time for members to either burst people out, or especially for Sylas and Gwen, buying in another rotation of their spells. When both have so much inbuilt sustain, that does a lot to keep fights going in their favor.
The Dragon goes down, and LNG still controlling this game, setting themselves up for topside, and you can see that Doinb on this side wave is going to set up for inner turret, while LNG group up as a 3-man. Dodging the handshake was good, but as culling comes through, I mean, Ultra Prime still forced out of their own jungle. And Lyric, it feels like right now, it's going to be hard to get vision around this Baron, and LNG, it looks like with their waves in order, are trying to set up Ultra Prime coming towards them.
I mean, you hit on getting vision in order for Ultra Prime especially is going to be really tough. Like, not having great ways to face check into LNG. You can be face checking into a tidal wave. You can be face checking into, you know, Tarzan locking you down, Light being there if he's not showing on mid wave. So Ultra Prime definitely have to be very careful. And even with second items coming out for them, like Archangels, which is huge. Seraph's Embrace, you know, now being upgraded, huge for someone like Cryin able to come through. Like the extra ability haste coming on because your Q is such a low cooldown. Typically in fights, that's where you're strong. Having so much AoE from a Renata, a Taliyah, and the Aphelios while Xin Zhao's buying space, but when you can't walk in to have that fair fight, it feels like it's really just going to be impossible, especially if Doinb can now once again take that Renata ult like he did before.
It did so much work, and in close spaces as well. Like, will ShiauC get the better ult, or will it be Doinb again? As Pandac drops the ult in the bot side while we're talking about ults, and right now, we're still seeing LNG up towards his top side. You can see Doinb still on the wave, just pacing themselves, and Tarzan even going that deep in. Look at the Herald over the wall. This will get a charge on the inner turret, and now Ultra Prime are forced to respond, but through the choke. They don't want to be here. That's a good handshake, but Tarzan takes next to no damage as Herald charges on in. They're behind enemy lines. Doinb with a great Everfrost. There goes more gold over to LNG, and with the Renata ult coming out, nothing you can do. Doinb even stealing the Moonlight Vigil from Elf.
LNG doing a nice job of dropping the Herald and trying to pull members through the jungle to set up that pick. Ultra Prime sadly didn't give in to the opportunity, but LNG were still able to force a lot. They were able to extend their gold lead even more, now up to about a 5.6 thousand gold lead, and just getting rid of some key tools. Like, to me, the most important team fighting tool that Ultra Prime have is the hostile takeover. And now that is down. Luckily for Ultra Prime, there's no dragon on the map, right? So the only real way that LNG can try to force you into anything and take advantage of that cooldown is starting a Baron, and it doesn't look like they are willing to risk that flip.
And so at this point, I have to ask you, you know, for LNG, what has to go wrong here is maybe not the right time, because Hacker may have set me up to answer the question. However, Doinb with a hostile takeover, stolen again. ShiauC failed out from absolutely nothing. He's dead. Panda now on top of Elk. What a nuisance, as he can't get the damage done and the job done. Doinb now wants to flank in on Cryin and Hacker. They get out alive, but that's a quick pick right now in front of Baron.
I'd be surprised if they don't go for it, because look at Zoom. Zoom's still pushing in bot. He does not have TP. He is sitting on that ghost, so would have to run all the way across the map. And it looks like Zoom might just commit down to the bottom lane. And for Ultra Prime, they're just going to be preying on a steal able to come through from Hacker.
They've walked on in. A beautiful ult again. Doinb, his Crescent guards have been better. His hostile takeovers have been better. And Tarzan has been better than Hacker in this first game of the series. Zoom will finally get his turret that he committed for, but even though they got LNG off the Baron, there continues to be style out of this mid lineup.
I gotta say, with where they were at, that was actually probably the best Ultra Prime could have hoped for. Like, they lost one member, but stopped a Baron that realistically Ultra Prime really have no business being able to stop, and they got a turret on top of it. So this game is still squarely in favor of LNG, like by a mile. But kind of nice for Ultra Prime to have a tempered head in that situation and not only be able to stop them, but also go for that. Feels like maybe LNG didn't have to over-index so heavily into like chasing down Hacker and, you know, could have stopped it at the first skill and maybe tried to pull them back in, but health bars were low. I can understand the temperament coming through for LNG, because that would be a bit risky.
Yeah, I feel like LNG, as you said, though, you know, still so far ahead. Maybe just not going to care, because with third Dragon, Ultra Prime not walking towards it at this point. Yeah, whatever. Let's just go next to the next objective, I mean. Zoom, as he walks in, Panda's still so aggressive. We're just seeing so many attempted 5v5s. Ultra Prime without vision. This is so dangerous. I mean, Doinb, what ult's he going to steal next? That's my first question. Hacker going to take the culling. Culling goes out. Hacker now low. And goodbye, Dragon.
And it just feels so hard for Ultra Prime. Like, right, typically this is where we'd start to talk about what Ultra Prime's options are. Feels like a lot of it is, is Panda C. A lot of it is kind of having to give up, you know, objectives. Try to set up, not necessarily cross map, but like in a position like that where you're like, okay, we know we can't fight Drake. We have no vision. It is impossible to force our way into LNG's comp in Fog of War. At least try and set up vision topside. Then if a member either walks too far forward or something like that, you can try and set up the pick to just buy more time, because that's all Ultra Prime need at this point, is buying time to where the gold lead at some point will just kind of level out of like, hey, we're both, you know, 4 items strong. It just comes down to who can execute better. But sadly, they haven't really been doing that. They have just been sitting in the face of LNG, and LNG have just been getting objectives with Ultra Prime, not buying time, not finding vision, and just kind of watching LNG do whatever they want.
Yeah, having a fun time. Like, okay, we're going to face it anyway. And as you said, you know, buying time for Ultra Prime also means Zoom actually gets to play side lane. Hullbreaker's picked up. He is full-on committing to being up here, as any Tryndamere would, or maybe should. And Panda, you know, right now he's on towards his third item. This is a game to just promote LNG's growth, or maybe where they should be, Lyric, because this is a great performance. Zoom's going to meet with Doinb, ShiauC up alongside him. And, yeah, like, how do you continue to buy time? As you said, find picks. But for LNG, they've had really good side lane control, Lyric. Am I wise to say? It feels like Doinb's always been denying Zoom from pushing and extending one of these long lanes.
I mean, other than the time where we saw Zoom get the 2 right, that was the one where, I mean, LNG went into that wanting to find a pick and convert that into a Baron. Ultra Prime were able to buy time by threatening the Baron again, and again, LNG kind of all-inning on those picks. But for the most part, we haven't really seen Zoom be able to find the opportunities, especially towards that top side. The lane he started out in to even break out that outer turret. So LNG back to the shenanigans they were in before. Push up in top side, get deep vision in enemy jungle, try and bait out some of these picks, because you do have a lot of tools to just one-shot someone if they look to contest vision.
But Hacker's going in first. I mean, there's a ward around the Baron right now for Ultra Prime. That ward should pay a bit of dividends here, as they know that LNG won't necessarily be on the Baron. Actually pinged out by LNG, as you guys can see on the minimap too, so that should be cleared soon, as Tarzan keeps trying to steal away. And yeah, meanwhile, look at the side laners. I mean, Panda taking the 1v1. He's going to buy a lot of time against Zoom as he runs for his life. But Ultra Prime are grouping in on this Gwen. But what can you do when the rest of LNG are here too?
And Doinb just taking turrets and sides. Like, we've already hit on how Zoom is Ghost, so he really can't answer. Cryin right now Ghost with his spellbook, so nice read by LNG to just get a free turret on the map and instantly with the TP to force his Baron.
Cryin come back in, but hey, good night to ShiauC. Cullen comes through. Hacker is down to half HP. A miracle still needed from the Ultra Prime jungler as Panda gets over the wall. Doinb steals his ulti, and with an abscond of Duck, once again, we're going to see this man with the Crescent Guard. A double kill over the wall, ready for his triple. And Baron going to LNG, a 16-kill game. This has become a stomp that makes it look so one-sided for Li Ning.
Hysterics, do you remember the one pick that I said I hope? You know, Fantasy's probably going down here. Do you remember the one pick I said I hope Ultra Prime ban coming into this game? Remember what that is?
Was it Sylas?
It was Sylas. It was like, hey, you know, Ultra Prime, you guys don't really play this pick. What's a good meta pick that Doinb will be able to pilot? This was it. And he got his hands on it. And again, we've seen some great resets and great fights come out from other members like Tarzan or Light and Lumao situations like this. But I really feel like Doinb has been the difference maker. We see the bot lane finds the pick in this scenario. Pandac jumping over the wall to try and zone out Hacker. Once the Crescent Guard is stolen, Doinb joining right alongside him, and it guarantees the Baron going over the side of LNG.
And that double kill means he's got 4 items picked up too. Doinb almost full build here on the Sylas, and you can say the same about Light, but let's be real. This game has been about the mid laner, been about the jungler, and how well they've piloted these fights, not just their champions too.
Even Lumao, like, to give, you know, some props to Lumao.
Yeah.
Lumao's a player who's been very heavily criticized in recent years, you know, for, like, fairly so, in my opinion. But he's been doing a lot in this game. Had some very impactful tidal waves, especially with how close-knit Ultra Prime have been grouping in these fights to allow for Doinb and Tarzan to pop off.
So funny that he has 14 out of 16 kill participation, and you look across the board, no one has above 10. Like, everyone has died within a fight, or everyone has not been part of the picks, but Lumao has. It's gotten abducted again. Hacker has to avoid the damage. Tidal wave you said from Lumao, absolutely brilliant as Tarzan now has a reset, but he flashes in. He wants Hacker. Now with the range on top and Doinb the stolen wall. Ultra Prime can't say a thing. A triple going down. Zoom trying to get a response to keep the game going, but LNG in 32 minutes will shut Ultra Prime out and make this game 1 look clinical.
This is the LNG that we have been waiting to see, and the LNG that, why we've been so harsh on them, because we know the heights the players are able to deliver. Even Pandac coming in with a much more solid showing than his first series.
Yeah, it's good to see Pandac in the spotlight a little bit, but it's good to see LNG not criticized and in the spotlight themselves. Game 1, only the start of the series, but a good sign of life from our middle of the pack team.
Great to see. Just it's not even necessarily about how they work together as a pair, but just their own individual performances kind of shining alongside each other in Tarzan and Doinb, right? Doinb, I seriously felt like a lot of his engages, a lot of the ults he stole, he found such high impact on. When he was stealing the hostile takeover, like, it's like, okay, I'm zoning like 4 members of the fight. Tarzan can win the 1v1. Now he's popping off. Stealing the Crescent Guard, flashing in between members multiple times to hit someone into his team, knock someone out of the fight, knock someone a different way. Like, he was seriously having a huge impact. And again, it wasn't about the mid-jungle synergy necessarily, but both of them are shining at the same time, and that is an LNG roster that you can get behind.
Yeah, it is. Tarzan coming off the back of that last RNG series as well. Not only a good sign, but kind of a showing that LNG are recovering from whatever was going on in their roster. You know, Arla's still not in. We can only speculate at this point, right? We don't know the internal workings of LNG, but we know what we see in our screens. And what we see is that LNG are working together better. Light and Lwandy with a great laning phase as well in this Lucian Nami. I think the double kill lyric kind of took away Ultra Prime's condition in the game. Like, that was the one lane that was kind of going stable.
Yeah. You know, why do you got to do Lumao like that, my dude? Light and Lumao popping off. But you're right. Yeah. That was the win condition of Ultra Prime. Yeah. Like that's one thing you nailed in terms of, like, LNG needed to get that bot lane to ahead and, like, punish the bot lane of Ultra Prime to be able to take this. And they did. They found the 2v2 kill early on to get Lucian Nami going. And from there on, when those two champions hit their first mythic, it is seriously so oppressive to play against, because then when we're in mid wave, like fighting over who can walk into river first, or we have pressure because we have stronger early game champions, you have to walk into river, you can just cover so much distance with that Gale Force and the culling and just burst someone out. We saw a lot of times that fights were starting off with Light and Lumao doing like the heavy damage, and that's where like the re-engage from up would come in, and then LNG, like Doinb Tarzan, would take over. But it's good that LNG were able to hone in on that strong 2v2 in bot lane and actually be able to take advantage of it.
For once, when we see Light has been probably the most consistent member this split, seeing it go above and beyond is always a good sign. Lumao, 91% kill participation. Doinb and Tarzan, I think they're in the running for an MVP, but Lumao as well, you said it all game long. That Nami performance was great. I just can't get over, like, the sick 4-man ultis from Doinb, the Renata ulti, the Crescent Guard. Like, Lumao might have been the supporting factor, but when you see flashy plays, that tends to get the MVP. At least we'll go to a break and